Okay, final thoughts. Final thoughts. If the first game in the series was a good idea for a D&D campaign, this game feels like a bad run D&D campaign. That's just it. That boils down to it. There's complicated plot threads that lead to absolutely nothing or to like minimal payoff that do not justify the amount of effort it took to get there. If I were a player in that D&D game, I would be annoyed. It's cool to see where all the things set up. It definitely sets the tone for all the games going forward about a group of young heroes that save the world. Like, the Warriors of Light in the first game kind of were like enigmas of like, you didn't know where they came from and everything like that. And you didn't know their age, you didn't know anything about them. There was no, they were just generic stand-ins, all of them. So when you came down to it, it really didn't set up what we see later in the series. This game does. This game sets up a lot of what we see later in the series, and really actually ends up becoming more of an inspiration to what comes later in terms of elements, monsters, kind of the progression of walking, maybe chocobos, then you get a boat, then you get an airship. They eventually drop the canoe idea, but it's the progression of transport gets solidified here. Really, when it came down to it, this is probably the worst Final Fantasy game, at least in the mainline series. I can't imagine the other ones I haven't played yet are worse than this. This is, I mean, the mechanics really are what kills it, for one. Two things. One, the plot. The plot makes no sense. There's no justification for half the things that happen, and the other half of things that happen just feel meaningless in the grand scheme of things. So it's either random or pointless. It drives me nuts, because, yeah, it doesn't feel like anything has any sort of weight. It either feels like things are just going to be handed to you, or the plot is just going to happen. And then you add on to the fact that the mechanics, the leveling your skills thing, a system that would eventually get fleshed out much better in the Mana series, and build on that concept a lot better, and they would, level up the magic and stuff like that. I still have my problems with the mechanical aspect of the Mana series, with the leveling, and especially when it comes to magic. It's just annoying to keep everything up to date and everything like that. In this game, it's even less, because everything is based off of it. You can't even build up things like your intelligence and your dexterity and your strength and all that stuff, your secondary stats, besides just weapon proficiency. Your other stats are also based off of just random background skill gains. So there's nothing that just ends up hitting a wall. You end up having to do the same thing over and over and over and over again, hoping that you're leveling up the right things, but you have to use it to gain it. So you're like Leon at the end. No matter what we did, he had 5 MP. Why? Because he never cast a spell, so he never gained more MP, which is a neat idea, I guess, in like general usage. But in the end, it comes down to just being frustrating, because you're constantly feeling like you're trying to dig your way out of a hole. You don't start decent and then get better. You start sucking at everything. And then by the end of the game, you might get to the point where you could do 1 or 2 things well. And it doesn't feel like a good system, where it feels like you're just constantly running on a treadmill getting nowhere. I'm kind of glad they really just did away with this whole system. And I guess that would be the final thoughts. I'm done with this one, and I'm glad to be done with it. But I'm also glad I played it, because like I said, this is where a lot of it got started. This is where so much of what would become identifiable ideas that would be forever associated with this franchise got their start in this game. So I'm glad I played it. I'm also glad I'm done with it.